How's everybody doing this afternoon? I've got 3 o'clock on the dot, so we'll work on getting going here. Thank you to everyone who's joined us this afternoon. Obviously, a lot of work to get done in a very short amount of time with all 97 of the municipalities that count as non-entitlement units across the state. Most of you know or have saw each one of your communities received an email from the governor's office this morning with a document basically outlining what they need by next Tuesday to be able to distribute the funds. The plan as of now is to distribute the funds to the individual communities on the 25th of this month. So obviously trying to get all 97 cats in this bag herded into one corner by next Tuesday is seemingly a big ask. So I thought it would be easiest, as I was getting a ton of email questions, to bring everybody together and do it over Zoom. So without further ado, I'm going to do a bit of a share screen here and show you that document if you haven't had a chance to look at it yet. All right, let me pull it up. So this happens to be the one that came through for Cody, quite obviously. The very top, obviously you're going to see who it's sent from. The CFDA number, Erica Legursky from the governor's office is on the line with us. I'll have her explain a small change to that guy there. Some basic explanations about the American Rescue Plan Act. How much money was allocated to local units of government, contact information for the governor's office folks. This next section, so we compiled a ton of data. Obviously, we asked you for some data as far as DUNS and SAMS numbers and all that kind of stuff, and that turned into a massive spreadsheet that we were able to get over to the governor's office. And what you have here is where it's pulled that information from that spreadsheet. We had all your contact info, the mayor's name, titles, email addresses, as well as for clerk treasurers, finance directors, those folks that fall just down here below. They are looking, one thing that we did not have for any of the communities that we decided to put on here was your EIN, your taxpayer identification number. Basically your employer identification number. So they'll need that guy. Are you registered with sam.gov? They don't need that cage code. They just need to know if you're registered with sam.gov. Again, contact information for your financial, for your head financial person, whether that's a treasurer, finance officer, clerk treasurer. Financial institution information. So you've got your routing, account numbers, financial institution name, contact information. They are planning on sending these funds electronically. That's going to be the easiest way to do it. And I don't know if anybody's put a stamp on a letter here lately, but it seems like a hit or miss proposition that it ever gets there. So they do plan on doing this as electronic funds transfer. Total NEU budget. We talked about the original budget that I asked for from everybody that everybody provided was the wrong one. That's partially on me because they were asking for the budget pre-COVID, even though the original verbiage said most recent budget. So what we've done and what's available out there, and the number that we're looking to fill in on this line on our website here on the WHAM web page. Can everybody see that? Can everybody see the WHAM web page? Nods, yes, yes. Okay, so here on the front page, we've got the ARPA resource page. If you click on that guy and you come down here, we've got the 3 urgent items, which we're going to talk on those here in a second. Those were included as attachments to that email. But right below that, I've got two separate headings. One says city budget number report, and then one says town budget number report. So let's click on the city one. That's going to bring up a PDF. These are the cost of government reports from the Department of Audit for the correct year. So down here, let's say we're looking for the city of Buffalo. That's here in the second column. You're looking down here at the bottom, total city expenditures is the number that they're looking for. So in the case of Buffalo, $7,318,358 is the number that we would look to fill in that space. The Department of Audit has copies of all of those audits that were provided to them in that year, so that can help with the documentation part of it. And as far as the state's responsibilities go there. I will switch back to the document here real quick. So that'll go here on this total NEU budget line. That would be that number from total expenditures. And both of those are there. So you've got, this one's for the first class cities. And then you've got the town budget number. This one's a multi-page document, obviously, but this has got all the towns in alphabetical order. So just scroll down through the pages to find yours. And again, you're looking for total town expenditures. So right towards the bottom of each page, you're looking for that expenditures number. Okay. Now the reason they need that, if you read this little bit of legalese below that talks about certain sections of the act, your total award is capped at 75% of your annual total operating budget, including general fund and any enterprise funds. So in effect, as of January 27th, 2020, that's why we had the wrong budget that I asked for initially. We actually needed the 2019-2020 budget, which is all on those two reports. So again, that's the number that you want to harvest to fill in on that particular line. Now, onto the documents that need to be signed and attached back with this when you return it to the governor's office electronically. You have the signed award terms and conditions agreement that was included on the email this morning as an attachment. Signed assurances of compliance with the Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 as provided by Treasury to be signed. That was also attached to that email, or to this email this morning. And then your top line total of your reference budget certified by an authorized representative. So that's that number that you filled in here. Okay. So those two documents, as well as the signature on this document itself, should be completed by your chief executive, so your mayor. In those cases, then scanned in and attached back to send back to the governor's office by next Tuesday.
Justin, this is Erica. I don't know when and I apologize, my volume was off, so I didn't hear the beginning of this. I don't know if this would be a good time for me to jump in just with some clarification on two items that I've had questions on.
Sure, go ahead, Erica.
So one of the things, and I did, I was a little anxious about putting it in the letter, and I did, where I put into for you guys to give your financial information. And I have had some conversations back about being worried about providing the account number that you guys have. What we're trying to do is some agencies, some entities have one vendor code set up with the state auditor's office. That's going to be pretty easy, I think, for us to identify. We have several other entities, though, that have, maybe 5 or 7. We just want to make sure that we're going to be sending this funding to the appropriate place. So on that, where it says account number, if you would like to, and actually I would probably encourage, if you just want to put like the last 4 of your account number, that way your whole account number is not out there, then what we can do is we can verify the last 4 of that account number with the vendor code file that we have on file at the state auditor's office. That way you're not putting your account number in an email back to me. So that's one clarification I just wanted to make. The other clarification, and my apologies, I sent these out to you guys late last night. I did not realize the CFDA number I put in there, I believe at the top of the very top of the page, I put 21.0127. It should be 21.027. that one in there needs to be deleted. And when I send you your information that says how much we're going to be giving you, I'll clarify that CFDA number in there. But that second number one needs to be deleted. And my apologies for that.
Okay. And Erica, on these documents, when they scan those in, do you prefer those to just be PDFs or?
Yeah, that would be great. If you just want to PDF those and you can email those back to me, that would be great.
Okay. Okay, and we do have a question here. On the top line, total budget certified by an authorized representative, do we need to submit the F-66 report for 1920?
I don't know what that F-66 report is. Justin, if you were asking me that, I'm not sure what that is, but it does say that we need some sort of documentation if it was something that was approved. If you guys have an approved budget, if you have minutes that approved your budget, however you guys go about approving your budget, my understanding is that we need something certified with that backup documentation.
With that, those audits that the Department of Audit has for the individual towns from year end on those that were sent in, certified and sent into the state, because the councils have to approve those audits before they're sent into the state. Would those suffice?
If you already have something certified that you send in, I think that we could use, I think that could be backup documentation.
Okay, I'm just wondering if we could work with the Department of Audit to just cut everybody out on this one and just get those 97 over from there.
I think as long as they're certified, I guess if they're certified they'd have to be certified from the entity at the time. And then if we could just get a copy of that certification, I think that would be fine.
Okay. Couple more questions. Where is the spreadsheet for the new totals located? That is on our website on the front page. You go to the ARPA resource page, and then I think they're like fourth and fifth down is that list of the, there we go, chat away, sorry. Again, ARPA resource page, city budget number report, town budget number report. All right. And those two letters are also there on that ARPA page, but they were included with this email as well. So those two need signed as well as this document. And then just that backup documentation then on the certification of your numbers. This goes through the requirements of the state prior to the funds being distributed, what's required by the federal guidance. They've got to make sure that you're not disqualified and in compliance with the certain portions of the legislation. This talks about those specific copies of those letters being signed off. If you are not registered with sam.gov, do so as soon as possible. We do have, it is just sam.gov, but if you don't have SAM's registration, go ahead and go through that process. Once you've submitted that, it takes 2 or 3 days for it to come back. And once we've got that, Erica, do you want them to send those numbers to you as they get them? I mean, it wasn't something that we put on the spreadsheet.
The SAM's numbers?
Or just let you know that they're registered.
I think if they can just let me know that they're registered. From what I got from the guidance is it specifically asked for the EIN number and the DUNS number, and then just said, are you registered? It didn't ask for like proof of registration, so I don't believe that we need that. But what we're going to do then is we have to go into the SAM's website, and I believe that we have to go into the SAM's website and enter your DUNS number, and then that's where we're going to see if you are, disqualified or ineligible.
Correct. Okay. I apologize. I'm trying to keep up with the chat. There's quite a few messages in here. So, Sorry, guys.
I was just looking at one of those. I don't mean to skip ahead, but one of those had talked about just the very bottom one about holding a special session to have the documents signed. I think you guys do need to probably follow your process for how you get your documents signed and approved. We don't want to discourage from that. The reason that we are that we wanted the quick turnaround time is we have to enter in all these documents and have those out to you within a 30-day time period, or we have to ask for an extension. We're trying to get everything paid out by June 25th. We have to have it paid out by July 30th, but that's our fiscal year end. And we just didn't want any hiccups of not getting you guys the payments before the end of the year. And so that's why we put that June 25th deadline in there. If you are having an issue where you can't get some of those documents signed by the 15th, let me know. One of the main things that I need from you guys is just your DUNS number, because what we were going to try and do between the 15th and the 25th is look up all of those DUNS numbers and see who was qualified and who wasn't, so that we could do the calculation of the payments. And then we have to turn around and do those calculations of the payments. And since there's 97 of them, we're just trying to give ourselves a window of some time that we can do that. But we need to know if you're eligible, essentially if everybody's eligible, before we can do that calculation, because those that aren't eligible, we have to pull you out and then recalculate.
So on the, just to clarify, Erica, on the, and we've got some comments from folks, the budgets are going to vary in most cases from what was on that cost of government report, because the cost of government report is the actuals versus what was originally budgeted. So there's always just a little bit of variance.
And I would go off of, that cost of actual report. That was one of the things where I kind of changed my letter. You and I had talked about that expenses. When I was talking to our state budget division, they were thinking that and from the verbiage in there, it talks about the approved budget needs to be certified. And if you do not have I think it says the approved budget needs to be certified. And if you don't have an approved budget, then you could go with your actuals. And I don't know if you're there. If you do not have an adopted, kind of right in there, that the reference budget needed to be certified and authorized by a representative. If you do not adopt a formal budget, then you can use your most recent total expenditures. So I think we have to, if you have an approved authorized budget, use that first. And then if not, your fallback would be your recent annual expenditures.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification on that. Got a couple along the same lines there. And again, talking about council special meetings to get these approved by council and then signed by your individual mayors. In most, in state statute, as well as in most of your ordinances, that's going to be the case, that for any type of approval, because you are entering into an agreement with the state on the backside reporting structure, and just understanding that you're entering into an agreement, and this isn't just receiving the money isn't the last step basically to the process. You will probably want to swing into action on that. And if you have a meeting between now and Tuesday, fantastic, but you may want to you'll need to circle the wagons and get that sorted.
And just kind of reiterate Justin on there, if you can't get the documentation signed by them, and you're one of the entities that in the letter, your DUNS number and EIN number were blank, if you could just let me know that you're not going to get that signed in time, but at least provide me that information, we can still kind of work on our side to get that, to get our verification done while you're trying to get that signed.
Now, was that that was a question I got. Now, if a town's got all of their ducks in a row and everything's in by Tuesday, will they still get their funding on the 25th, or is this an all or nothing deal?
I think it depends on how quickly we can verify this, because like I said, if there is an entity my understanding is if there's an entity who is either declined or disqualified, then it changes the calculation that we get. And off the top of my head, I apologize, I can't remember. On one of them, I believe we have to just return that portion. On the other one, we can reallocate it to the other payees. So we just kind of need everybody in so that we can run that calculation and see what amount we're going to be giving you is why we were hoping that we could. And so that's why I put that date of the 25th. We talked about piecemealing those, but I don't know that we can because that ending calculation is going to depend on your status, either if you declined or if you're disqualified.
Okay. To Brian and Kimmerer, yes, it is a 2 payment. So you'll get half now and half a year from now. But it is a 2 payment setup. The first report to the federal government on these funds is on October 31st of this year. And obviously, and even in this document, it talks about that guidance is still to come basically from the federal government. So we will keep everybody abreast of that as it becomes available. We'll work really closely with the state to make sure that we streamline that as much as possible. So if we have a budget ordinance, do we need to use that amount or do we use the amount from the cost of government report like we were just told? If you have a budget ordinance, use that, correct, Erica? And if you don't have a budget ordinance, then go ahead and use the cost of government report.
That's my understanding of how I would agree. That's my understanding of how I read that portion. And I just copy and pasted that from the guidance. That was my understanding of how I read that.
Okay. And that, I apologize. That is my misspeak on that. Mia, do you want the approved budget as of, so you want the budget that was 2019, 2020 would be the budget that you're looking for, not the one that you're working under currently. Cash base. Okay, yep. And again, not 2020, 2021, or you're looking for 2019, 2020, because that was the year pre-COVID. So they're looking for that number so that they can make sure that because everybody's budget's dipped in the years after. So they're looking to make sure that nobody gets disqualified on the 75% based on their budget dipping with COVID. Brian, we're going to have a lot of conversations about the guidance. There's a lot of resources on that ARPA resource page that we've got, as well as in this message that was sent out by Erica this morning, there's copies of the guidance documents. On our page, we've got that, as well as some distilled versions of that from National League of Cities, as well as Treasury, that distill it down. It's a 130-page document, the full guidance is, so there's a lot of detail in that. But the different categories, the different acceptable categories are there in those distilled versions. And we're going to talk about this at summer convention here coming up in just a few weeks. We've got a full session. We're going to have the auditor, the state auditor, Chris Ursine, is going to be there to talk a little bit on some of the auditing requirements as she reads them. We've got some folks that are going to buzz in from National League of Cities via video feed. And we'll hopefully, now that we know that we're not going to have a legislative session, we may be able to cull some other subject matter experts that normally would have been very busy in that time frame if the legislature was meeting. Point of clarification from Julie up in Buffalo. If you had amended your budget by that magic January 27, 2020 date, would I include the amendments up to that point?
I'm just guessing on here, Justin, but my guess would be is if you had your budget amended prior to that date. So like we do in the governor's office, we do a budget and then we do a supplemental budget. So if I would assume that if it were the state, we would use essentially kind of what our original budget was plus any increases or decreases during that supplemental time period and give that figure.
Okay.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I believe that's right. So yes, Julie, I believe you're correct on that. Brian, that was just a mistake on my part. The first numbers that I asked for. So you're looking for your numbers for your 2019-2020 budget. And the numbers that I got from everybody originally were 2020-2021. So that was my misread of what the guidance documents were asking for. All right, I'm going to continue down the document here to see if we run into any other questions. You'll notice that you have an NEU recipient number. That'll be a new number that you'll be keeping track of over the next few years. These funds are meant to be spent by 2024 unless you're doing a qualified capital project. And then my understanding is you have until 2026 to complete those. There will be annual reports each year at the end of October, starting this October on that. Again, talks about those two letters. And these are all the federal requirements. Some links here. The Treasury main page on these guys. And again, a lot of these are ones that we have on our page and that were also from Treasury that just sort of distill some things down, the facts and like that. Again, we're going to do a lot of training on the guidance. Once we get through this distribution phase and get the money out to everybody, then we'll reload and get back to talking about everybody about the guidance and the ways that you'll be able to spend the money within the rules. Down here at the bottom, you do have the option of declining funds. I did get a question from a council person in a city here in the state that asked if they could decline the funds. Again, I get if you're having a called meeting or a special meeting to get this approved, so the governor can, or so that your mayor can get these signed for next week. It is an option to decline the funds and for them to be returned to Treasury at your discretion. So.
Justin, one thing on that where we put, it's kind of weird where it says planning to decline funds.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can scroll up a little bit, but in the letter, kind of right there, right there, it says Treasury will be providing a standard notice form that will be required to use for this. So what it says in reading the guidance, if I was reading it right, was that if you have to choose to decline the funds, because if you don't decline the funds, then you're still going to be on the hook for reporting for those of what you would have been eligible. But it doesn't look like they have put the form out there yet for us to officially decline those. And so what we're needing, and that was part of that conversation, was what we're needing for that calculation to give the money out to other entities is if you're going to decline that, we need to know that you're planning on declining that so that we can adjust our figures. And then there'll be something formal that you guys will have to do, I think, before August 31st to say that you aren't planning on taking those funds. But that guidance, when I looked, everything that I had sent to you guys that was the attachments 1 through 7, that was what was out on the website as of when I had looked at it on the 7th. But there's stuff that's going to be out there, to Justin's point. They're going to update that periodically. So just continue to look at that website, or Justin's going to provide you guys that information. But that's just a little caveat into why that wording is weird of saying that you're planning to decline them, because there's some steps you have to take, additional steps you'll have to take if you do decline those.
Okay. So make sure that box is checked. Then again, authorized signer, I would say your chief executive, so mayor, title, and then dated. So this document and those other two sign documents for the federal government. Get all of these signed, scanned back in, and then sent back to the governor's office. Again, they're looking for the end of business on Tuesday. Kelly, on the question, can a town manager qualify as an authorized signer? Yes, if if you have a city manager, they are technically the chief executive for your community. It still has to be approved by your council though, because you are entering into an agreement with the state.
I was just reading one of the other ones where it says numbers may be verified against and copy of the appropriate budget. My understanding is when the entities, when you guys do your report to Treasury, you'll be uploading information to them. So the way that I took that, unless I'm reading something wrong, is that we'll just want to make sure that whatever you guys gave us is what you're going to upload to the federal government when you do your reporting. And I don't know if that's how you read that.
Yeah, it seems that basically you just need to keep things. And the source of the 75% thing, and again, that's a big that ends up being one of the biggest parts of this ask, was getting those numbers and the backup documentation. Oddly enough, nobody's anywhere near 75% on their award. But that rule was originally put in one of the earlier iterations, because they've been talking about giving money to local governments all the way back to the original CARES Act. It was defeated legislatively the first couple times it got carved out. This last time it went through, but in those earlier iterations, there was originally the idea of doing minimums. So even an itty bitty town like Lost Springs would get, say, $30,000 or $40,000, whatever that minimum was designed to be. They knew that there were going to be some towns and villages and whatnot that would exceed their budget, or might be what their entire budget was for the year. So they put in that rule that said that your award couldn't exceed 75%. Fast forward to when Arpa passes, they've completely gotten rid of the idea of minimums as part of that legislative debate process, but they kept the 75% rule. So we're really kind of all going through the motions to make sure that we're fulfilling that. But if you look at the award amounts versus what you guys' budgets are, it's, we're more like in the, we're more in the low double digit range, as opposed to anything approaching a majority or not to mention 75%. So. Are there any other questions that we can answer for everybody right now?
Did you post what you're expecting the municipalities to get anywhere?
We have not posted that yet. So what we'll do is once we get we've roughly calculated it. So right now there's 23 million that we received. So the total award that we'll receive is about 47 million, I think. We've received about 23 of that. So that will be split via population amongst all 97 entities. And then we'll have to take into consideration, is there anybody above that 75% threshold, which we don't believe there is? And then what are the people that are either disqualified or denied or decline to get final figures? So we have some preliminary ones. We are not posting those yet. I think that's something that we can post and definitely send Justin once we're finalized. And then we will send you a letter. We'll go back and send you guys a letter once we know we're going to award you the money. It'll have the correct CFDA number, the date that we're estimating, like I said, the 25th to get you the money, and then the amount that you're going to be awarded.
Anita, I see your question. All of these documents need to be back in by the 15th. They want to distribute the money on the 25th, so the 15th, which is next Tuesday, is when they're hoping to get everything or wanting to get everything back in. So they've got time to do the rest of the administrative stuff that needs handled before the funds can actually go out. Mayor Weaver and Laramie, yeah, there was a letter that came out talking about the special session not being a thing for this summer, where there was some mention made um, about direct distribution or the talk of other other expenditures from the state level that come to local governments as well as to schools. Obviously, there's a large pot of money that's going to the schools out of this ARPA funding too, a little over 303 million, if I remember correctly. Those are conversations that we're definitely going to have, and obviously moving forward towards through the rest of the interim committee season as well as into next legislative session. Mayor Matt Hall, who is our WAM president, is on the governor's strike team for the ARPA funding, and he's been having conversations with the governor as well, kind of about where all of this falls out. But we heard some grumblings of that in the legislative session, honestly, towards the end of it last year, once we knew that the American Rescue Plan Act had passed. Obviously, they didn't act on any of those, during this legislative session, and left the full direct distribution amount intact for the remainder of this biennium, but it'll definitely be a conversation. That is a conversation, again, that we're having with the governor, because if with that hanging out there a little bit, it kind of paralyzes folks' ability to plan to some extent. So that is a conversation we're going to have as we get through this distribution phase. And once we start looking at what communities' plans are with these monies, obviously we're going to have to keep having that conversation and start to talk to your legislators as well locally when you have occasion to speak with them. Start to basically discuss what your community's plans are for these funds, recognizing that they're one-time funds and that they're a bit of a long-term down. It's a financing. It's a big finance out of Treasury, out of everybody's futures to some extent. So we want to spend these monies responsibly and on projects that are impactful in the long term. So thank you, Mayor. Yes, they can receive everything by email. That is how everything is preferred to be sent. Do not send it in the mail. So again, scan those documents back in once they're signed. Do hang on to the originals. Do hang on to the originals just in case there was ever a need for those to be produced. But do not mail those back to the governor's office. Just do electronic copies and send those in. So this, basically, Anita, you're looking for this form, the certified budget, and then those two letters. Which again, you're looking for I'll show you where they're at. Is obviously they came through with the email. I'll also show you real quick where they're at on our website. So again, on the ARPA resource page, so off of the home page, you go to American Rescue Plan Act resource page. Right here at the top, under urgent, award terms and acknowledgement form and assurances of compliance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Those are the two that you need to get signed by your mayor, and I include those. So basically, these, other than the very front page is the signature page. It's kind of like your taxes. You sign on the front page and then everything follows. But again, signature from your mayor, their title, date, signed, then just scan and email that document, or attach it and email that document in with the rest of the information. And again, that was off of this ARPA resource page, which is right on the WAM front page. And I'm not sure on the attachment numbers. It's on attachment 6 and 7. It's the same titles, though. I did see that from the email. And again, if you want to access those, you can get them off the WAM website, but they were also attached with the message from the governor's office this morning. Any other questions?
Just, I don't know if it's a question, but I just wanted to let you know I had some email issues, so I'm not sure if these cities and towns are on here, but Burlington, Byron, Cokeville, Edgerton, Manville, and Mills. I just sent you a message that I had some email stuff that was returned from them. So if there's anybody on here that didn't get that email from me, if you'd let me know, and then Justin, if I can work with you to get those, maybe a new email address for those entities just to make sure that they received my message.
Okay. Yeah, then email you want those documents you want all of these back to your email address, right, Erica? You didn't have something in separate set up?
The only thing is if you could make sure that you return it back to myself, and then also I copied Gwen James on the email, and so her and I are the ones who are going to be working this document. So if you could just make sure that the two of us get that back.
Message from Medicine Bow. Would it be possible to list the pages of the documents you need in a summary, signatures, and attachments? So yeah, I can try to put that together. Basically, it's those two letters, which again were attached, as well as being on this ARPA resource page on the website, as well as the document that was sent from the governor's office this morning. So you've got basically 3 signatures to get approved and done, as well as that budget documentation. Scan all of that in and get it sent in. You have any other questions before we let everybody get back to planning emergency council meetings? Okay. I am obviously available via email. I know Erica is too. Please let us know. This is going to be a multi-stage project for all of us. WAM is here to help and to hopefully be a good conduit of information from the state. Again, we're in this initial phase of just making sure that we get the monies out on time and in as timely a fashion as possible to everybody. Then we'll double back and start talking about guidance as well as the reporting as we go through the rest of the summer and get the rest of that guidance from Treasury and from the federal government on what's going to be required on the reporting end. But obviously we'll be in a lot of contact. We understand that this is a kind of a huge undertaking and there's a lot of tentacles to it. So shoot me emails. If you have questions, feel free to give me a call. Erica, the same way. And we appreciate everybody trying to jump through these hoops on such a short time frame to try to get everything in. And yes, a couple of quick questions. General fund or with water fund and other funds, all of your funds together. So and that was in the guidance that talked about if you're general funds and any other. So you're in Wyoming, we have enterprise funds, refer to them as enterprise funds. So you want your general fund and any enterprise funds included into that number, because that's your total budget, your total expenditure for the community. All right, I don't see anything else, so we'll go ahead and move on for the afternoon. Thank you to everyone. Again, if you have any questions and follow up, let me know. We will most definitely be in contact over the next couple days and just kind of keeping everybody abreast of things. We also have offered our help, obviously, to the governor's office and trying to chase down anybody that they don't hear back from. Obviously, we've got to talk about some contact information that may or may not be good. But again, if you have any questions, if I can give you any clarifications, or try to refer you through to any other information, please let me know, and we'll go from there.
Justin, thanks. And if I can follow on one more thing, I saw somebody had said that they had some incorrect information on their form, and I apologize. So if there is incorrect information on that form, if you'll just cross it out and then write in what you have, and then if there's anything missing, like if I didn't have an EIN number, it'll just be a blank. If you can write that in on there, that would be greatly appreciated. So just, mark it up in red, or just cross that out. That would, we want to make sure we have that correct information. And then if whatever you guys send me back on that PDF, then I'll update in my spreadsheet so that it's right if we have to do any further correspondence.
Thank you, Erica, for jumping on with us this afternoon. It was great to have you. We appreciate all your efforts on this too. So with that, I'll let everybody get back to their afternoon, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, guys.